So who in the audience knows the difference between digitization and digitalization? Oh, good, okay. I didn't raise my hand either, by the way. So we'll check in with you after we're done here. So I thank the panel for joining us. We have with us Matt Violet, who is our Senior Director of Digital Systems. We have Ed Walters, who's the board chair for the Climate Collective, Wes Geisenberger, the Vice President of Sustainability and ESG for the HBAR Foundation, Raphael DeRie from Alcott, and Matt Yarger, who has a typo in his title. He's from IOTA Foundation. Little duplication there. So we'll have a really interesting conversation. But first, I wanted just to give a little bit of context about where this came from. A few years ago, we started, I mean, it's been known for quite some time that carbon markets in some ways are in the Stone Age in terms of digitization. You know, we're still using PDFs, Excel spreadsheets, emailing, and so that introduces potential for human error. Obviously reduces efficiency, prevents kind of aggregation and you know, effective data insights to inform decisions. And so we had this clumsy diagram a number of years ago that shows the kind of value chain of impact certification. And the idea has been to digitize that in an effective way that, you know, gets better data more efficiently, faster, and starts allowing impact to be delivered on the ground and benefit more people. So what we'll talk about today are the different pieces of this ecosystem coming together and different use cases that can plug into ultimately an end-to-end digital solution that accomplishes, you know, better, faster, more. We call that gold standard IQ. It's intelligent quotient, but also impact quantification, but really just doing things smarter and better. So to talk about what that looks like for gold standard, I will invite the architect of GSIQ to give a brief overview. Matt.
Hi, hi everybody. I'm Matt Violet. I'm the Senior Digital Systems Director at Gold Standard, and yeah, I'm going to talk about GSIQ and digitalization and what that means for us. Basically, as you can tell from the previous slide, things have been a bit chaotic over the years, and what we're trying to do now is pull together all of our data into a system that's easy to use, easy to understand, and publicly accessible where that is appropriate. So, for example, currently we have a lot of data which is stored in legacy sort of systems, as you mentioned, PDFs, emails, legacy databases, and that's simply not accessible. So what we're trying to do is build GSIQ, which is kind of like a huge data lake, and pull all of the data into that whilst keeping the integrity high and keeping the security high. And we're going to be using the APIs and the work groups to ingest that data into that data lake. So for example, if you're a student out there somewhere and you've had a look at the registry and you want to write a paper on it, but it hasn't quite got the data that you want, you could potentially apply for a GSIQ account. We'd give you an API. You'd be able to use that API then to finish your paper, query the databases, pass your exams, be a hero of your family, etc. And that's just one of many examples that we could use this for. So the technology behind this, and I'm not going to dive too deep into it because this is the last session and lots of technical terms, it's fairly simple. It's going to be cloud-based, and we're going to be using the API systems that we're developing in allegiance with the working groups. So the analogy I like to use for GSIQ is a data lake, a literal lake. So you have the APIs filling the lake up with the data, and the use cases are such as some people want to ride on the lake in boats, and they'll be using things like the registry to access that data. You'll have some people who want to swim in the lake, such as the student I mentioned earlier, And you've got others who really want to take a deep dive into the data, and usually organizations or other people. But the key thing here is to give the data back to the public and make it easily accessible and secure at the same time. So, yeah.
Great. Thanks, Matt. One of the keys here, I think, is to make it accessible is interoperability. One of the key premises that Gold Standard followed is to make sure that we are doing this in a collaborative way, so that it wasn't just our piece of technology over here that no one else can touch or benefit from. So we were lucky to have a grant from google.org, which helped support the open collaboration that I invite Matt to give an overview of now.
Yeah, so I'm Matt Yarger. I am the founder of the Digital MRV project, which is transitioning into DIMIA, and I was previously head of sustainability at the IOTA Foundation, did cybersecurity at the NSA for about 10 years before that. With the open collaboration, we came together based on some of the learnings that we had from the IOTA side around digital MRV and digitizing data and digitalizing the actual way that data is managed and gathered from facilities. And we got to a point where we didn't really know what to do with the data anymore, because there's no registries that are able to accept that level of depth and data that comes from a fully digital project. So with the open collaboration, Google came in really kindly and supported the development of that. We established 3 working groups. One is the Digital MRV working group, and that is focused on defining what is digital MRV, how do you digitize a methodology versus what is a digital methodology, whereas a digital methodology is natively digital. It's designed to have parameters that are digital, that can be ingested in a digital format, where a digitized methodology is something that pre-exists in an analog format. We're scanning it in and we're starting to apply it in a new digital way. And establishing guidance on how to develop those various types of methodologies. With the second working group, it was digital infrastructure and open APIs. So it's deciding the boundaries between a project operator, a project developer, a VVB or an auditor, a certifier, and then the marketplaces and exchanges that come and buy the credits and help facilitate the financialization of the carbon credit like ecosystem. All those have various APIs that can connect them, so now that we understand the boundaries and how they communicate, we can start to standardize the APIs and allow them to actually develop with each other and have open standards for that. And then also standardize what the data lake looks like, what kind of data structures there are, how the metadata works, and all that kind of stuff. And then the other aspect was the digital assets working group, which is trying to understand what's the right way to implement blockchain, because we've seen a lot of interesting experiments out there, and everyone has a different opinion on what's right and what's wrong. But working through the open collaboration to get a lot of public consultation and feedback and understand these are real use cases for blockchain or distributed ledger technology now. This is where tokenization could apply. This is things around tokenization or proof of work or energy footprints or those kind of things that might need to be boundaries that we set. And then what kind of technologies do we want to start to really experiment with more, whether it's tokenization of carbon credits, whether it's NFTs for carbon credits, whether it's forward financing through new financial mechanisms that come from cryptocurrencies. There's a lot of interesting discussions in that working group. So we just wrapped all that up for the first year over the last week, and so that was our final week of the first foundational year. We have all the guidance from the various working groups coming out, hopefully sometime in July. And then we look forward to seeing everybody's feedback on that.
And then we start to build, yeah? Yep. So what I really like about this is really the end-to-end approach. It's addressing already some of the topics that have come up over the past couple days about how tech can really enable small producers, communities on the ground, talking about financial transparency, risk and reward sharing. These came up just in the discussion around tokenization that was punted for this conversation. So looking forward to hear more about that. Can I turn to you, Ed? Can you talk about the Climate Collective and how you guys are looking, kind of across the ecosystem as well?
Sure, and thanks for having me here. I'm Ed Walters. I'm a partner at Allegory Capital. We've invested in about 50 climate technology companies in the last 2 years. And over that period of time, we were approached by a lot of entrepreneurs and environmentalists that were really interested in applying blockchain to carbon markets. This was early on, a lot of enthusiasm around things like KlimaDAO. So kind of very exuberant speculation on carbon markets, which to us was a little concerning. Like, we saw a lot of interesting applications of the technology, but that one to us felt like it was being misapplied, in part not because of ill will or any malintent, but more because a lot of technologists, particularly in the blockchain world, didn't really have enough of a background in climate to know what the second and third order effects what they're doing could be. In the same vein, a lot of people from the environmental world didn't really know how to access or use blockchain technology, but thought there was something there that was fundamentally valuable and potentially transformative. We didn't really know where to point people. There were a lot of smart organizations thinking about this. We certainly weren't one at the time. And so our thinking was, let's just connect these people together. So Climate Collective was really an organic expression of an attempt to connect people across the ecosystem thinking about this together. We decided to raise funding for it. We received grant funding from Cello. And our thinking there was a lot of people most affected by climate are underbanked. A lot of them are in the global south. Many of them don't have computers. And Cello being mobile first made sense because it allowed us to connect directly to the people most affected by climate change and also develop native ways to have them benefit from trying to mitigate it. We are now a 50-member organization 2 years later. We comprise academics, investors, technologists, big corporations. We're doing lots of work with organizations like Gold Standard and the Rocky Mountain Institute. And the work is really designed to take these lessons people have been developing in-house and share them as just open source kind of public goods with the broader community. And so as part of that evolution of what our work has been, we're trying to upgrade our kind of native capabilities. So we hired a phenomenal Swedish economist a year ago named Anna Lerner, who was at the World Bank and at Meta for about 15 years thinking about climate finance and around digital technologies. And in the last year, given where the market's gone, we've expanded outside of just blockchain into what we see as a lot of other enabling technologies. You need good, fundamental, high-quality data, but you also need to develop insights from it. And so we've been very excited about applications of machine learning and AI that we think our members also can really move forward with on things like the supply chain. I think I'll leave it to the members here to talk about real use cases. I'm happy to talk about any of our members at some point if I have time. But for us, as we think about the longer term vision, why we exist as an organization, there is so much data in the world, right? Like, data is not really the problem. Sensors have been commoditized. We have geospatial satellite data, LiDAR data, cell phone data. The problem is how to make sense of that data, right? And we'll hear later, I think, about digitalization versus digitization. But fundamentally, we want the same thing, which is better coordination and analysis and insights from this data. And we think that best comes from an expression of what organizations value and care about, and then make those expressions interoperable. And so to us, one of the most pure manifestations of that when you look at things like blockchain is digital MRV. It's how do you go to the ground truth and collect higher quality data primitives that can be applied across use cases, verticals, organizations, problem sets. So I'll stop there, but excited to talk about all this as we continue.
Excellent, thanks, Ed. Wes, can you talk about HBAR Foundation, your vision of working in the ecosystem, and if you can draw some insights on how that really drives change in a meaningful way, especially if you're considering, kind of the mission and values of the people here at a Gold Standard Conference.
Yeah, absolutely. And so a little bit about the HBAR Foundation. We're a grant-giving organization. We come from the Web3 or distributed ledger technology world. It's where we got our initial funding when we announced our $100 million fund, which is a grant fund for digital public goods. And the fund's main mission is to bring the balance sheet of the planet to the public ledger with 5 goals: making climate finance auditable, digitizing and open sourcing methodologies, scaling validation and verification, discovering a global climate asset price, and making ESG reporting credible. All of these goals are interrelated. So when you work that back, it's taking assets that we have, whether they're emissions or any types of credits, and making them fully traceable, with the transparency of climate finance, knowing the price at time of trade, going back and understanding every step in the process when you map a methodology, which actors are involved, what data they're producing, how it's verified, back to the point of origination, both financially as well as any ecological or project data. And so as part of our work, we've built some open source tools, digital public goods, that anyone can use today. And one of the key projects is the Guardian, which is focused on making it easy to digitize a methodology and not just act as a source of digital methodologies that you can go look at, understand, and better study, but actually use it as an operating system. So when you plug in as an actor to that and you produce data, it's fully auditable to the role that's mapped out. And when you understand not just where funding comes into a project, you understand who's getting paid within an account on a public ledger. You understand the role and the relationship between finance and the ecological data being produced, auditable back to that metric ton, and understand the authenticity of that, both from a data perspective as well as a financial perspective. And what we're looking to do in the market is build net new attributes that could be considered, tied to the SDGs, tied to different co-benefits, in addition to the environmental data that's being produced today. And so we're really excited about the opportunity for public ledgers, the opportunity to innovate using distributed ledger technology, but also supporting projects at the infrastructure level, as well as folks who are building digital applications to make the market more efficient, while gaining higher quality attributes in the process.
Excellent, thanks. Raphael, tell me, what are you working on? What is Alcott's vision?
Yeah.
Why is it meaningful?
Yeah, we basically had a big realization when tokenization happened last year, which was really a pivot moment. And we got to mingle with a lot of people, the Climate Collective and some others. And we came to this realization that there was like a big focus on tokenization, but you couldn't interact with what happened before. So the impact that you wanted to have on the projects was only focused on the retirement, and we couldn't really have an influence on that. So from this reflection, what we wanted to do is actually to be able to implement all these technologies from projected ID and note to issuance, and to get support from different players that wanted to contribute in this direction to be able to do that. What we find out is like there are many different initiatives that are all over the place, and what we wanted to do is have the ability to offer ground experience and like statement of like where the market was in order to help and contribute to this global effort. So we were like basically trying to define a roadmap to that and find a way that could give us like a better way to deliver the project, and using like digitalization of methodology is one of our goals, so that like we can actually like create like a whole ecosystem based on an operating system that is like machine readable instead of being like human computed. And that would actually, in our sense, give like more opportunity for us to have more impact on the projects, because we can focus more time on the ground and like making the project more efficient. And that is what led us to spin off this division of Alcott that is really helping to leverage and to apply the different solutions on the market.
So I still am looking for that kind of impact on the ground. Can you tell me, can someone raise your hand and say, like, how does this make a difference to, this point came up in the tokenization question, because it was about how it reaches the last mile. So you can paint that picture for me.
And this is like one of the most attractive part of it, is the fact that we can be attached through tokenization through different mechanisms, price discovery being one, royalty system being another one. And we've seen different initiatives. Some of them were mentioned in the panel before, like the fair trade carbon credits, that were already like using this kind of mechanism, but we're looking at like how to make it mainstream. So we need like the support and validation of the different elements of the carbon ecosystem in order to do that. And the fact that like you could actually redistribute a share of the proceeds is a very valuable proposition for making the project successful. So like we have strong interest in developing solutions like that, and we really want to make it like the fundamental point of like the application of these technologies into our projects.
So what does that mean for someone in the project community?
You mean in this room
No.
or in the fund?
The project, like the people delivering the carbon impact, like in communities where the projects are happening.
Well, I think there is also an opportunity through these elements to get the participants of the project, the beneficiaries, to be more involved in it. And they are the key success factor of it. Ed was mentioning about Cello that is powered by actually smartphones. Mm-hmm. The penetration rate of smartphone has been like tremendous all over the globe. And we have an opportunity to reach communities in like many different ways through that, not only through payment, but also through education on how they can improve the project by themselves. Mm-hmm. If we think about Cookstove, for instance, there can be like different ways to interact with the people above, just like getting like a collection of information, but also incentivize them maybe to go like into some other directions that can be beneficial to the project or not, mm-hmm. but could create more cohesion and not having situation where we got like people that are like part of a carbon project but don't even know about it. So I think it's a common layer on which like we can build like first a very good added value in terms of data acquisition and engagement, but also an operating system for the carbon project developer that is much more efficient and that is more streamlined. Another value proposition about the fact that like if we get like all the different elements that can be validated through the different bodies can lead to faster issuance mm-hmm. is something that is very attractive.
Yeah, I mean, I like the focus that you have on engagement with the local community so they can feed into the project. That's a way to take further the idea, the gold standard principle of local stakeholder consultation, not just at the start, but on an ongoing basis to improve the project and benefit directly from it. So on the transparency of impact, Wes, you mentioned financial transparency. We've talked about the benefit sharing. Raphael just talked a bit about that. How else can more transparency in the financial flows, what difference can that bring to carbon markets or beyond if you're looking at different instruments for financing impact?
So you can look at it at the price of the credit and understand what % goes back to the community. Of course, it's much easier when this is all on a public ledger, because you can understand the relationship of our trade account to account to account, and understanding what initial funding went to the community to set up the project, what funding went to consultants, verifiers, registry, project developer. But you can also understand, as the credit moves to the market, changes in price, changes in value, where that value is being captured, who's capturing it, and understanding, are these mechanisms both sustainable, but also what's the impact on the actual project itself? Are there relationships between certain ecological attributes and a price? And you can also understand ways that you can explain to the community or give the community opportunities to engage to increase the value of the projects. And so this isn't just a static system. When you enable digital systems to be interactive, you give the community incentives to bring new attributes, new opportunities to market, so that when communities are engaged, they can better take control of the project, control their own destiny to create unique outcomes. On the flip side, when you're working with financiers, you can also look at the use of proceeds in different sustainable finance instruments, bonds, forwards, to trace funds into the project to allow for communities to engage. And when we use the public ledger mechanisms that are out there, it gives us new opportunities that otherwise wouldn't exist by not just structuring the finance, but actually structuring the data to come out of the finance to support market outcomes.
And so do you anticipate, or does anyone on the panel have a view on how this might transform buyer behavior? Like, yeah?
That's the big mystery.
Okay.
It's like, I mean, there is just like one part about this that is maybe like a correction that is going to come through this digitalization of project development, is the fact that we may, through like enhanced data acquisition, have some correction compared to like analog methodologies. And the big question we have is if we end up with a project that compared to like an analog project issues maybe 20 or 30% less credits, will the price actually be adjusting according to that? Will the valorization of the data bring more confidence for the buyers to purchase those credits at a higher price?
Well, I mean, the spirit is always in getting better data, learning, and improving. So let's see.
I'm confident it will work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also around like providing accountability to the different actors throughout the carbon market cycle, if you will. Because like Allison from Pure in one of the events earlier, she said something I thought was really powerful, and she's like, everyone here is really just a service provider for the project operator. The small farmer or the person on the ground that's creating the impact and making the decisions that create real impact environmentally and socially, those are the ones that really matter, and all the rest of us are just here to enable them to do what they're doing. But what you see across the market in instances is sometimes predatory aspects where that individual at the end may only be getting 15% or less of the value of the actual credits on an annual basis. It may take them 2, 3, 5 years to actually receive those credits. So then there could be risk of projects failing before they even get their issuance, and the amount of issuance they get is so much more than they were actually banking on that it actually doesn't create the value that they need to continue doing what they're doing and scaling their impact. So with the blockchain and the DOT and the digital and digitization aspects, it creates a layer of transparency to where who's taking out of that 100% and why is it 15% or less sometimes? Who's a little bit predatory? How do we have more transparency over the value and the pricing of different services along the service providers? And just how can we create a bigger impact? And then once you get the data in a digital format, it's machine readable, the ability to use that for endless things from that point on becomes really exponential on the value that they can have. If it's enabling brokering of the data for them, as long as you're protecting their personal information and things of that nature, there's aspects outside of carbon and carbon credits that could be really, really impactful for them and for research institutions and academics and everything to understand the impact that we're making and make better decisions around what kind of projects create the most impact, how do we invest in them more efficiently and effectively, and how do we enhance or accelerate the ability to bring these kind of projects onto the ground.
That's the deep dive into the lake that Matt was talking about. Okay, so getting the better data at the source, so at the start of the value chain. Ed, do you want to talk about some of the use cases of some of the organizations in Climate Collective on the DMRV side?
Sure, and I'd say before that, I think we're all recovering from like a wild 2 years where there was just a ton of capital poured into building infrastructure without necessarily thinking about the end buyers or like the suppliers. And so now we have a lot of tools with no one really that wants to use them, right? Like one of the big challenges now is trying to understand how to consolidate a lot of these tools into solutions that people want to use right now. And I think until we do that, we're not really addressing this problem. And so I'm thrilled that we're finally all here, being convened by institutions that have been here for a long time, talking about just that. How do we all come together and coordinate the delivery of these tools? And so a lot of what we've seen with Digital MRV at Climate Collective is an attempt to do just that. It's how do they fit into the entire value chain. One company based out of Europe, and it's hard to choose among all the members, right? They're all our favorite, is called Open Forest Protocol. It's essentially a blockchain platform that is enabling the monitoring of deforestation. And it's quite interesting. It's not just blockchain. It uses blockchain to capture the data, but it also uses essentially human sensors. So people on the ground with cell phones, they're kind of equivalent cell phones, to validate that the data matches with what's been captured by a satellite, which is interesting. So you triangulate and double check this information. And when that data is validated by multiple data sources, a payment is distributed to the person who took the picture with their phone. And so it's kind of elegant in that the same device you use for kind of digital MRV is used for payments, which I think we're going to see a lot more of, particularly in the Global South. And so that's a platform that not only allows you to kind of enable ecosystem services, it also allows you to generate carbon credits. And so a lot of what we've been talking about internally is, obviously one, like what are carbon markets now to us? Like who should be selling these credits? Who should we partner with across that entire kind of vertical value chain? But two, what are the right methodologies that enable the right kind of digitalization of this data. So with open forest protocol as an example, a lot of these companies are thinking about methodologies. So we're looking to, again, kind of neutral third parties to help us identify what those data sources need to be. A lot of that then powers interesting financing mechanisms. So as we see more, not just big corporate buyers or investors come in, we're seeing also sustainable debt come in. We're seeing all sorts of kind of private credit facilities. They have really different data requirements than others. And so understanding those use cases, how they fit in, has been a big part of what we've been spending time on.
Well, that's super exciting. It converges really well with gold standards kind of discussions around diversifying different financial instruments, carbon markets being just one of them for driving finance for impact. So great to hear. And I'm also glad to hear that there's kind of ground truthing of some, we've heard a lot of pitches on, we have the satellite data, it's a panacea, it's going to solve everything. And we've done some testings and not so far. So interested to hear more about that. I think it'd be a great time to hear from all of you. It's an exciting topic and would love to. We have a question here and one in the back. We can get the mics. Or if someone just wants to shout. You could introduce yourself. Yes, you. And if you could introduce yourself and your organization first.
Sure. Hi, my name's Sarv. This is coming from the perspective of me wearing two somewhat completely different hats. One is GATE as a project developer, and two from Asia Pacific Climate Change Commission as a quasi-regulatory governance body. My question is, so I understand digitization and the other one, sorry, from the perspective of consolidation and increasing efficiency and cost savings, let's say from a project management perspective. But when it comes to the real bottlenecks of accreditation and verification and auditing and so forth, what are the practical impacts and use cases of digitization, in the sense that, are you saying that digitization allows for auditing to happen at each step of the project journey, or automation of like accreditation happening through machine learning, for example, from a verifier or accreditation perspective, to actually allow for high integrity credits, for example? What are the actual practicalities of digitization?
Okay, great. Let's take another question and then. Here, thanks.
Bomshat from South Pole, thank you very much for a topic, fully supportive for this discussion. Thanks a lot. When it comes to quantifiable, computable kind of processes, I fully on board with this. The challenge I have these days are the externalities and elements that can actually influence the credibility and certainty of the data that is digitally collected and maybe automatically even calculated. First, how is this system, in your opinion, going to address those uncertainty and give us, let's say, a risk profile kind of reporting on the final result? But next to that, there's also a lot of non-quantifiable matters on the ground. We know that these days we have to report a lot more than quantifiable measures. The question is how digital MRV is going to, let's say, address those long-term issues as well. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Does anyone want to take? We have a question first about verification and also about kind of uncertainty, externalities. Any takers?
I'll just go on the side from our perspective about how we can comply first to the requirements of the standards. And I think it comes from defining level of confidence of the data that is acquired. I mean, blockchain is not magic. Not everything that gets written on it is suddenly up to any standards. What matters is the level of confidence that you can bring from the data that you acquired. And there is been extensive discussion actually with the MRV working group from Gold Standard about first guaranteeing a chain of custody, making sure that the data cannot be tampered with between the collection and the receiver. And also some other efforts are going on about how do you assess the quality of the data by the person or the element that has collected it. And I think it's an ongoing debate. And I also see it as like, it's not like a one bullet solution. It's like we can think about having like more data than ever before, and ground truth will always be like superior in different ways than other digital tool. But it's just, it can be tempered also in different ways. So I think it's more the aggregation and collection of like wealth of data that can help to refine the collective result.
Wes, do you want to take a shot at verification?
I can take a shot and maybe tie it back.
Perfect.
So when we think about verification, actually when we digitize methodologies, we think about it as an opportunity to look at the workflows across multiple parties that are happening today in the real world in the analog format. When we talk about digitizing a methodology, it's taking that analog system and bringing it into the digital format. And that digital format is a repetition of today's process, but in a more standardized way where the calculations are happening. And those calculations are easily comparable side by side. Now we know today not every single project, even following the same methodology, is going to be 100% validated the same way or verified the same way across each project and market participant. And so if we're able to audit the rules, technically audit those rules, and we're able to then look at the process side by side and even compare them side by side, which we can do today with our open source systems like the Guardian, what we're able to do is then look at the data formats and understand if they're being consistently applied in just that digital format. Now, when we go to take that fully digitally native, like we've talked about within the working group, there's opportunities to add automations to that process. So when we add automations, we can bring in different elements like satellite data. We can bring in different elements like sensors tied to cook stoves. But I want to actually invoke some of the thoughts of some of my old colleagues at Oracle. And when we think about sensors, they lower the cost of monitoring, but they don't replace monitoring on the ground. When we think about artificial intelligence, it lowers the cost of prediction. Whether it's in machine learning or another type of AI technology, it doesn't replace predicting and what the actual truth is, no matter if it's ChatGPT or some other AI-influenced technology. Blockchain or distributed ledgers, they lower the cost of trust, but they don't replace trusting exactly what's happening. And so when a sensor from a cook stove is signing and saying that it's being used in some certain way, you need to go combine that and marry it with ground truth. You need to marry it with the other technologies that are available. And what we try to do with some of these technologies is provide checks and balances, like the audit against the rule set, the audit against how something's being signed or attested to or given a credential to, and provide a system that provides an end-to-end workflow where you can trust what's happening because there's the right checks and balances of both technology and on the ground truth that's happening.
Yeah, and I'd add that it's not just reducing the cost by bringing in these new technologies, but it's increasing the frequency. Because currently the frequency can be annual, it can be sometimes longer than annual frequencies. The data that's gathered for the VVB auditing process is a data sample, not comprehensive data. So it's a data sample collected at intervals over the time. Whereas with digital solutions and digitization, you can have full comprehensive data. You can see every data point at every interval throughout the day. You can understand with real depth and breadth like what's going on at the project level, and you can start to do that in a frequency that's not annual, but maybe at a monthly point or even a bi-weekly point. That enables more proactive management of the facility and the beneficiary and like what kind of impact they're creating, but it also creates a higher frequency for the issuance of the credits as well, because if we can audit it faster, and we can have higher trust and quality around the auditing of it, and we can have higher quality and trust around what's actually happening and the ground truth, then it shortens that time frame for them to start earning that. It can be a quarterly issuance on credits instead of an annual issuance on credits.
Removing bottlenecks that exist today. More questions? We have one here in the front row, and if we can take a mic to the back as well, right there. Thanks.
Thank you. My name is Marta Georgin, and I'm from Gold Standard, actually. Responsible for the assurance system, and so I'm very excited to see automatic checks and reducing human error. But I want to go back to what Rafael said, that we don't know if this is going to increase the value for buyers. And I'm thinking about, okay, you have a cook stove project that generates 2 credits per year. That's at $5, that's $10 per year per family. if we increase from 15% to 50% of that, that's $5 per family. Aren't we like throwing tons of money for like very little impact? And how do we make sure that the money that we're throwing at this is not having like $2 per family impact, but it's having really real impact on the ground? How can we really exponentially increase the amount of finance that's going to the ground through these digital solutions? So how can we, as you say, how can we use these tools? Ed, you mentioned, how can we make these tools actually solve problems rather than create the tools that we can create?
Thanks, Martha. And here?
Yes, Nicholas from Ivy Protocol. We're working on like early stage pre-feasibility funding of projects. I have a very short questions. Like, I'm a big fan, firstly, of what you guys are building. Like, I think this is like super neat and actually the most exciting thing of this conference, in my opinion. I wonder what will not be in Gold Standard IQ. Like, what are you guys not able to cover within it? Where do you think this will still be outside of the ecosystem? Because I love the idea of having it all in one place, the data, the buyers, the sellers, what won't be there?
Okay, great question. Do you want to take this one first, the second question first, Matt?
Yeah, sure. What's not going to be in it is a lot, to put it simply. These things don't happen overnight. There's a lot of development work, and the pace at which things are moving is extremely fast. All we can do is try and look to the future and see what we can incorporate and try and make GSIQ as future-proof as possible. So we're not going to go out there and try and AI everything instantly. We want to build a solid platform that we can use and we can turn it agilely into the next technology, all the various parts that we may have not incorporated at the start. So it's a really tough question to answer, but yeah, that's the plan, to try and make it as future-proof as possible, to include as much as possible.
And to be able for people to plug into it, so it's not going to cover everything, but it can connect with as many credible ecosystem players where values align as possible.
And I think connection with the community plays a huge part in that as well. We can't we can't build everything ourselves. We need the inputs from everybody. We need to know what the requirements are from everybody. So the more community input that we get, the better the products will become.
Yeah, and that's really the goal from the open collaboration perspective is, Gold Standard can't do everything. They shouldn't necessarily be the end-all be-all as well. There needs to be coordination across standards, across different regulatory bodies. So from the open collaboration, it's how do we establish this community and similar foundation to like the Linux Foundation, and how all of the things that they build have large ecosystems around them, contributing to their develop, iterating on the technologies, adding new capabilities. Because once you open these kind of things up and you create that ecosystem around it, you'll be surprised what companies come in and contribute to it. You're going to see all kinds of things that you didn't even plan on or consider that just get added into it because it's useful for a different party in the ecosystem.
I see Raphael's eager.
Yes, I'm eager to answer this question about how do we match the price. I think the effort over here is based on infrastructure. Price discovery is another issue which has been redundant in like many of the panels, that we don't reach the desired price for having the impact that we desire to have. But I would say that there is like some co-benefits to this effort, that through actually the potential monetization of this data collection, we could actually find other attributes that could be beneficial to the redistribution to the communities. And this is something on which like we've been talking a lot about, like the frontier between like impact financing and climate financing and things like that. And I would believe that like there are many roads that can align together to bring like channels of redistribution that are more efficient than the one in place. First from an infrastructure perspective, but also in terms of revenue generation for the communities.
All right, let's take one final question down here in the front.
So, Melissa Lindsay from MStream. I was just wondering how you guys will be integrating with the CAD Trust with us. So we've got like a marketplace. will be integrating with the gold standard API, or would it be the CAD Trust API? And also, we've not integrated directly with the registry so far because we've known that these projects are ongoing. And one of the issues that we've really seen is that it hasn't been a public API. People have been going in through developer tools. We see it's been very energy intensive so far. A lot of people are hitting the same API to try and get the same data out, and they haven't been able to just take the delta. So is it being set up in the way that we can just basically see the delta and just take the changes which are happening to the database, or are we going to have to go in and interrogate the entire database?
Okay. So there are lots of decisions to be made around this and resources and what the asks actually are. This is why we need more collaboration to get these things done. Obviously, the most inefficient method is people pulling out the entire data sets every time they want to do queries. There are technologies around which will help resolve that and just give you the delta information, etc. So it's things like that. That's why we've got to listen to the voices in the crowd to avoid and build a system that will avoid the pitfalls such as that. So, thank you.
Yeah, and I think I can kind of wrap up and add to that, but over the last year, we've helped establish this foundation and understand the boundaries of the APIs between the different stakeholders across the market. For the next year, we're going to start to open up the membership and bring in new members, and I think exchanges, marketplaces being one of those member groups is really important to understanding how do you pull data from something like GSIQ. What kind of data do you also contribute back into GSIQ for the traceability of the credits and who the buyer is and what the retirement looks like? So now that we have our guidelines and know what our bounds for each stakeholder are, we can actually start to go into open development instead of just open collaboration. And we can transition to saying, like, this is a baseline of APIs for an exchange or marketplace. You're going to have your own on top of that, but having a solid foundation that helps you be interoperable with other stakeholders is really important to helping everybody move forward and accelerate.
All right. Well, let's resurvey the crowd. Do we know the difference between digitization and digitalization? A couple, okay, well that's something. All right. Thanks very much, everyone. Thank you all for attending the Gold Standard Conference. You will have seen just before we came out a quick demo of the SDG impact tool, which Gold Standard will be launching in the next weeks, I think, days, maybe even, so stay tuned. Hopefully that makes it a lot easier for project developers to quantify, report on their SDG impacts in a consistent, standardized, and streamlined way. So stay on the lookout, and thanks again, everyone, and let's go build. All right.